Good evening, everyone. I'm Councillor Legg, Chair of the Standards Committee. Members of the committee and officers are present here at Civic, and I will ask everyone to introduce themselves shortly. A number of officer colleagues are also in attendance. Committee meetings such as this are generally no longer live streamed, but this evening's meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the Council's YouTube channel as soon as possible after the meeting. I would ask those attending online to please switch off your cameras and microphones when you're not speaking. Please note that the audio system in this room has been upgraded and will increase clarity on the recording. However, this will require everyone to speak clearly into the microphone in order to be audible in the recording. We're not expecting a fire alarm test this evening, so in event that the alarm sounds, please exit the building by the nearest marked exit and assemble outside as indicated by officers. Public participation. A supply of papers for the meeting is available on the Council's modern.gov committee management website. I've not received any questions from members of the public for tonight's meeting. We have been joined by some independent persons online, and whilst they are in attendance to observe as members of the public and not officers, I will exercise my discretion as chair if they wish to comment on any of the items on our agenda tonight. I will now ask committee members to briefly introduce themselves, please, followed by our parish representatives and then officers, then independent persons. Thank you. Over to our committee members. Sam, would you like to start?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Crooks from Broughton Ward and a member of the committee.
Good evening, Councillor Selina Raja, representing Shenley Brook End and a Vice Chair for this committee.
Good evening, everyone. Councillor Aisha Knom, for Bletchley Park and member of this committee.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Sue Smith and I represent Wolfton and Fishermead and a member of this committee.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Councillor Hannah O'Neill and I represent the Bletchley West Ward and I'm a member of the committee.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Councillor Jane Carr from Newport Pagnell and I'm substituting for one of my colleagues this evening.
Thank you. Over to parish councillors.
Good evening, everybody. Parish Councillor Phil Windsor from Newport Pagnell Town Council, member of this committee.
Councillor Richard Pryor, Chair of Havisham Cum Little Linford Parish Council and member of this committee.
Councillor Tara Jeffries for Great Linford and parish representative.
Thank you. Now over to officers.
Sharon Bajaz Singh, Director of Law and Governance.
Pete Brown, Head of Democratic Services.
Thank you. Independent persons.
Good evening, John Jones, independent person appointed by your council for that purpose. I'm hoping that I've got microphone contact I didn't have last time. Thank you.
Thank you. And online we've also got a trainee solicitor. Tiffany, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi everyone, good evening. I'm Tiffany and I'm a trainee solicitor at Milton Keynes City Council.
Thank you. And we also have Mel Wolf. Would you like to introduce yourself, Mel?
Yes, good evening. I'm Mel Wolf. I am the Chief Executive Officer of the Bucks and Milton Keynes Local Association of Councils.
Thank you. And we've been joined by Councillor
Darren Kendrick, member of this committee, Central Milton Keynes Ward.
Thank you. So we'll now move on to the agenda. So item 1, apologies. Sharon, have we received any apologies?
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies from Councillor Hopkins, Councillor Whitworth and Councillor Adewale, and Councillor Carr will be acting as a substitute for Councillor Adewale for the duration of the meeting.
Thank you. Disclosures of interest. Councillors are to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests or non-registrable interests, including other pecuniary interests they may have in the business to be transacted. and officers to declare any interest they may have in any contract to be considered. Are there any interests to be disclosed tonight? No, thank you. So item 3 is the minutes. We have to approve the minutes from the meeting of the Standards Committee held on the 14th of January 2026. Are the minutes agreed? Agreed, thank you. Item 4 is the periodic report of the monitoring officer. Sharon, can you please introduce the report?
Thank you, Chair. As usual, I'll take it as read and just present some highlights. The first is I'm pleased that we were able to meet with our independent persons, and John may choose to contradict me afterwards, but it was a really constructive meeting. And we always learn a lot when we meet with our independent persons, not the least of which is because they work for other councils. And so we're able to pick up good practice and reflect on what we do here at Milton Keynes. I'm also pleased that Councillor Windsor is with us. So thank you. And that was approved at full council. So that's an update since the paper, evidenced by his attendance tonight. Thank you. And then I just wanted to give you an update of what has changed, because, you know, things always change between publishing the papers in terms of the figures that are in the papers for complaints. So stick with me. We're going to do a little number game. So in terms of at 3.5, we say that there are 17 complaints outstanding. Well, in fact, there are 15 complaints outstanding. No, let me tell you, there are 17 complaints outstanding. And that is because included in that are 2 city councillor complaints that we received since the publication of the paper. One of those you can see some detail about on Annex B, page 21. And the second we received yesterday. So there are currently 17 outstanding complaints, 2 of which are city councillor and 15 of which come from town and parish councils. And at 3.3, we said to you that 6 complaints have been resolved. Well, in fact, it's 8 complaints, and that's how we end up with 15. That makes sense. And then turn into investigations. The update is that we've now set in relation, there are 2 investigations dealt with at 3.2. In relation to the first, we've now set a date of 24th of April, and some committee members and one of our parish councillor members will be part of that procedure. And on the second, the update remains as per the report. And then, Chair, with your permission, I just wanted to, as it's the last meeting of this year, we prepared Annex C to give you an overview of complaints in the last year. So I think if I'm reflecting on a total of 46, I think we can agree that feels a bit high. However, when we reflect that 37 of those have arisen from parish and town councils, and 27 of those 37 have arisen from 2 parish councils, I think that leads us on to another theme, which we might talk about, the committee might want to talk about in terms of its work for next year. And we are looking at that under agenda item 6 later on in the committee. But that's definitely an issue that I'd invite the committee's feedback on in terms of what we can do. And it's so helpful that Mel is here as well as part of that discussion. So reflecting on 9 complaints at city council level, plus the 2 we've had. So that's 9 plus 2, 11. I think that's fine. That to me, I would say if I went to a meeting of monitoring officers, I would say we enjoy good conduct at city council level at Milton Keynes Council. So I'm not proposing that there's any work that needs to be done at city council level at the moment. We do, of course, have an election on the 7th of May. So I think the other thing I wanted to bring the committee's attention to is that it's important to us, as you know, we've done a piece of work in terms of the resources that are used to administer code of conduct complaints. And you can see that we're telling you that we are about a month over on average in terms of processing complaints. I will say to you, I'm not worried about that. I'm telling you that's the case, but I'm not worried about that because I'm comfortable with the types of complaints we had. In terms of those 27, for example, were complex in terms of multiple complainants, multiple allegations. So they just take longer to go through. And then I think in that same paragraph, we tell you that we've actually managed to conclude one in 3 weeks. So I'm not worried. I think I have the right level of resource, Chair, at the moment, and not concerned about that. But I think it's just worth you reflecting that we are running primarily because of the parish council complaints that we have talked about multiple times here at the committee. We are running above our 8-week target. And then finally, just to note that this year we have spent over £12,000 on an external investigator in relation to those 2 investigations I just referenced. And again, that is exceptional because we did for example, last year, we didn't need to spend any money on an external investigator.
Thank you, Sharon. Do any members of the committee have comments they wish to make at this stage? Bearing in mind, we are coming back to some of these issues on a later agenda item. Hannah?
Thank you. It was one of the conversations we had with regard to one of the parish councils that are listed quite a lot in our papers, and we spoke about the possibility of mediation. I just wondered whether that had been kind of broached in the end with them and their response to it, or whether we just haven't even got that far.
So in December last year, the chair wrote a full letter which included offer of working with the council. We haven't had a response formally from the council on that. They did, in fact, when we wrote that, when the chair sent her letter, they did have a change of chairs. So we have been in touch with them and we know that they are considering the letter. We just haven't had a formal response yet, but that offer remains on the table.
Thank you, Hannah. Any other comments, Sam?
It's not so much a comment, Chair, it's a question. If we look at that particular council again, 2 things I'd like to ask. First of all, how many actual complainants are there? In other words, not complaints, but people. So we can see if somebody is putting in more than one complaint. And then secondly, what is the difference between the 3 complainants where you have A, a councillor, B, the personnel committee, and C, the parish council by resolution?
Okay, so first of all, I don't have that number to hand on how many different complainants, but we do have multiple complainants on single complaints sometimes, and that has been a feature of what we saw in this last year, which has led to, as I said, time being added on and going back and forth. In terms of how we describe the different categories, it is as it says. One is you want to tell me what page you're on? Yeah, what page?
Page 11. You've got councillor, the first one, and then the next one is the personnel committee. And then if you turn over the page to page 13, you've got the parish council by council resolution. And I'm just trying to track my way through those 3 different.
It is as it says. So if you as a single councillor put in a complaint as a councillor, you would be in the first category. Secondly, if you were a councillor as part of a personnel committee, which is what happened here, the personnel committee resolved to submit a complaint. So we received that from the personnel committee of that council. That's the second category. And the third category is, as it says, the parish council resolved at a meeting to submit a complaint against one of its councillors.
Sorry, Chair, I didn't realise my microphone wasn't on. I said I'm not sure to what extent I can probe this in public without sort of putting you in a difficult position. But could I perhaps follow up Hannah's question and ask, would it be fair, given the discussion there was 3 meetings ago about this particular issue in this particular council, would it be fair to say that the mediation of which we had great hopes hasn't perhaps worked out to the extent that we hoped it might do?
I think it's as I answered, Councillor O'Neill, we haven't engaged, we have offered, and we've not had a response yet. But just to say, and it's really helpful that we have a close working relationship with Mel. You know, as I always say with these things, there isn't like a magic bullet. And as you know, last year we were trying through different means, including through Mel. Councillor Smith also did some work with the council, with the chair of the council in terms of mentoring and helping with chairs. So we did put in a number of aids for the council, and then the chair of our committee wrote offering some more formal help, including mediation. We haven't had a response yet.
Thank you, Mel.
If I can add to that, Councillor Crooks, I think one of the reasons for the delay in coming back, whilst very disappointing, is that there has been a change in the chair of that council and also a change to the chief executive of that council. And I think that they are still getting to grips with the situation, which possibly might have added to the delay of them not coming back. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mel. Jane.
Would it then be not prudent to make the offer again?
So we are in contact, both Mel and ourselves. Peters, definitely we are in contact with the chair and the officers at the council. And so it's a matter of fact that we haven't had a response, but it's also that we are still in contact with them. They know that they're being that the offer of support is there. But as Mel said, I think it's a little bit about capacity to even take up that offer at the moment. But that time will come.
Thank you, Sharon. Any further comments or questions?
Could I change the subject, please, to PERDA? You mentioned that a hearing was going to take place in April, and presumably, quite apart from that, other complaints might come in. Given the sensitivity of, in every year, the election month, are these dealt with perfectly normally, even though we're in PERDA? Or whatever we call it now?
Yeah, so we don't use the term PERDA anymore. It's the pre-election period, and it actually starts tomorrow morning. And the pre-election rules are very clear that it's business as normal apart on things like this. So yes, we will continue as we go along. Of course, everything we take a view on whether it should go ahead in terms of sensitivity, but in terms of what's the complaints before us, I don't anticipate that I'll need to stop dealing with anything in advance of the election.
Thank you, Sharon. Any further comments? No, thank you. I now move the recommendation that the periodic report and its annexes be noted. Agreed? Seconder, please. Aisha, thank you. So moving on to item 5, to consider a report on the recent code of conduct cases at other local authorities. Sharon, would you like to introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Should we take it as read? And I suppose I would invite feedback from the committee generally if they find this practice of putting cases before you is helpful and whether we should continue in the next year. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Sharon. Any questions? Selina.
Not just a question, it's a comment. I would like to see this taken forward because I think it's quite helpful. And I just want to thank all of you that you take the time out to do the research and get those cases and put those forward to us so we can learn from them. Thank you.
Thank you, Selina. Any further comments or questions? So just to sum up, the additional recommendation that we continue with this practice at future meetings. Jane, thank you.
Sorry, Chair, I think you missed my hand. In terms of the social media policy, I actually felt that was extremely helpful. but might not necessarily align with party political guidance. And I wondered if that had been discussed with parties.
Sharon, have we discussed that in relation to parties in that way? Has it been asked for any feedback?
Through your chair, I think we've discussed social media guidance on a number of occasions at this committee. I don't recall any specific consultation with political parties on it.
Chair, can I make a recommendation then that actually this is shared quite urgently with parties after the 8th of May, as I suspect there'll be some parties that won't have got this far in terms of detail or information, and we need to be on it.
Thank you, Jane. Has it not already been shared though? Yeah, so it has been shared. So Sharon.
Well, social media guidance used to sit within our constitution. So it was part of our constitution. And then earlier this year, we made a decision to take it out of the constitution and for it to be guidance that's issued. But it absolutely will be part of the mandatory induction training on code of conduct for councillors. So all councillors will be brought to their attention in New Year.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Jane. So like to move the recommendation that the committee note the background and outcomes in all cases reported and that we wish to take forward this practice in future meetings. Do we have a seconder for that? Selena, thank you. All agreed? Thank you. So the next item 6 is the final item on our agenda this evening. It's a verbal item to discuss any proposals to put forward for the 26-27 work programme for the Standards Committee. Before I open the floor to suggestions from the committee, please can I ask officers if they have any suggestions for discussion, please? Thank you. Sharon?
Thank you, Chair. I have 3 if it helps. The first follows naturally from us having hearings later this year because our last hearing was 2021, I'm told. So I think naturally, if we have hearings in April, the first hearing we have in April, we will definitely want to do a little review of the hearings procedure because we will pick up some lessons learned from that. So I see that as quite a short and discrete piece of work that the committee can probably do maybe early autumn or so. And then secondly, I'm sure the committee wouldn't be surprised to hear me say, I do think there is a piece of work that we can do on supporting parish and town councillors and parish and town councils, which has regard to the year that we're having in terms of the complaints. So we have real case studies that we can use, but also the good practice here at Milton Keynes, which includes that close working relationship we have with BAMAL, as well as the role of the independent persons here at Milton Keynes. So I feel that is like a bit of a longer piece of work that you might want to do and to formalise some of what the committee wants the officers to be doing and the committee itself might want to get involved in. And then the third one is dependent on whether the legislation comes into effect in the next council year, which introduces updated standards regime. And in the event of that happening, then we will definitely need to be doing a reactive piece of work in terms of making sure our arrangements and all of our documents are fit for purpose for the new legislative regime. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Sharon. Just capturing that. Any further comments or questions or other alternative pieces of work that people would like to offer?
Thank you, Chair. There is somewhere in the depth of the minutes a commitment to look at the rotation of independent members.
Thank you, Pete.
That's correct, Chair. I think we did discuss this a number of meetings back. So this was about the independent persons, I think, and the length of term before we sort of and we could pick that up.
Thank you.
And the other thing is I'd like to revisit the issue of parish councils with regard to very consistent complaints coming forward for one particular person it does seem to me that given resources and that side, and the situation the council is in, that ultimately we have to be able to say we cannot afford, given our overall financial situation, to go on investigating something to the extent that we do, if we feel that the circumstances don't justify the commitment to that amount of resource.
Thank you. Sharon?
Chair, yeah. I think that is something that is a strand of the work that can be done under support for parish and town councils, because support can include, you know, a hierarchy of support and diverting resources, like you said, to proactive, constructive help for parish and town councils rather than a complaints-based approach. And I suppose what you're as piece of that work, then what we need to do is look at the arrangements, because you've raised this point before. So we need to look at the arrangements in terms of what the ability is of myself as monitoring officer to, in effect, reject something because maybe it's well, vexatious is already in the procedure, but where, as you're saying, it's a repeated complainant. So that is something we can pick up under the parish and town council work.
Thank you, Sharon.
I would have been happier, Sharon, if you'd said you will pick it up as opposed to you could pick it up.
So I meant the committee, as when you resolve, you could say that's definitely going to be a part of that piece of work. Sorry, that's what I meant. And I was going to say, in terms of repeat complainants, I was going to say the committee should actually feel quite, I think I mentioned this, that the letter that the chair sent, that you all resolved that the chair would send to Kents Hill, was picked up as part of national news in terms of local government law, because it is, as far as we're aware, very unprecedented move, but it was one that the comments on the article were complimentary, because you can expect that we're not the only people that find ourselves in that space, but certainly, so it was a bold ask. I think it was the right thing to do. It was a bold ask. So I just want to say that where we are in this space is we do have an opportunity to be pioneers in terms of how we constructively support parish and town councils to do their business without this being a diversion for them. And like you said, a pull on our resources here at City Council level.
Thank you, Sharon. Sharon,
I was just John, the
John.
independent person.
John, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to back up what Sharon said about on the work programme about the possible change in the legislation. I don't know whether this committee has seen it or not, but the government has published the results of the consultation which took place 2 or 3 years ago. And their thinking at this stage, it's by no means got much further than that, and I suspect it won't get very much further some years, but I think it would be helpful for the committee to know how the government is thinking in terms of changes to legislation, which are quite significant.
Thank you, John. Are you suggesting training for new councillors will include this at the beginning of the new year?
I wasn't thinking of that so much, but I think given that there will be no doubt some changes to the membership of this committee, they should be aware of it. What original thinking is, I wouldn't confuse newly elected councillors in their training, which is coming up in there's a date in May, I think, being set aside. I wouldn't stress it for them, because that will just confuse the issue, I think, really. They've got enough to take in without looking at something which could happen 3 or 4 years down the line. But I think the aware that, in fact, the government is significantly going to change, for example, the sanctions regime.
Thank you. Any other further? Yes, Richard.
Just in regard to the support for parish and town councils, I just want to suggest that maybe one of the future parishes forums might be a vehicle to share that with them. And the next 2 parishes forums in June and September are actually in person chamber, and obviously this needs to go through the parish advisory group, of which a number of people, myself included, sit on around this table. So just a suggestion.
Yeah, thank you. Any further comments, questions, suggestions? So looking at the, so we're going to move the recommendation. The committee proposed the following items to be included in the draft programme for 26-27. So a review of the hearings procedure, short piece of work, and a piece of work, number 2, a piece of work supporting the parish and town councils, and to look at the arrangements of the monitoring officer to be able to reject something if repeated complaints, and to consider looking at the parish forum as a route of also speaking and informing parish and town councillors. Number 3, a reactive piece of work in terms of the new legislation change that's coming up with the government's changes. And number 4 was the rotation of IP members and length of term serving. So those are the 4 that have been captured. Has everyone agreed with those? Thank you. Do we have a seconder, please? Aisha? All agreed? Thank you. So brilliant. That closes tonight's formal business. It is 7:05. Thank you, everyone.